There was once an elephant so strong that no force in the forest could stop him. And yet, he never even tried to be free. Every morning, the great elephant stood in the same place, beside the same tree, tied by a thin, fragile rope to a small wooden stake in the ground. The rope was old. The stake was weak. Any other animal could have broken it without effort. But the elephant did not move. Not because he couldn't, because he believed he couldn't. The other animals often passed by and wondered. The monkeys whispered among themselves. The deer watched from a distance. Even the birds questioned it as they flew overhead. How can such a powerful creature be trapped by something so small? But the elephant never answered. He simply stood there, silent, his eyes calm but distant, as if he had accepted something long ago. What no one saw was his past. Years earlier, when the elephant was just a small calf, he had been tied to that same stake. Back then, the rope was strong. Back then, he was weak. He had pulled, he had struggled, he had cried out in frustration. Day after day, he tried to break free. But no matter how hard he pulled, the rope held him in place. Eventually, exhausted and defeated, the young elephant stopped trying. And in that moment, something inside him changed. He didn't just give up on the rope, he gave up on the idea of freedom. Years passed. The calf grew into one of the strongest creatures in the forest. His muscles became powerful, his steps shook the earth, his presence commanded respect. But the belief he had formed as a child never left him. The rope was no longer holding his body, it was holding his mind. One quiet afternoon, an old monkey approached him. The monkey had lived many seasons and had seen countless changes in the forest. He climbed slowly onto a nearby branch and looked down at the elephant. "Why don't you walk away?" the monkey asked. The elephant did not respond immediately. "I can't," he finally said. The monkey tilted his head. "Can't or won't?" The elephant's ears moved slightly. "I tried once, a long time ago. It was impossible." The monkey watched him carefully. "That was when you were small," he replied. "You are not small anymore." The elephant remained silent. For him, the past still felt real. The memory of failure still lived inside him. The monkey jumped down from the branch and walked closer. "Do you know what is truly holding you here?" he asked. The elephant looked at the rope. "This," he said. The monkey shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "What holds you here is a story." The elephant frowned slightly. "A story?" he repeated. "Yes," said the monkey. "A story you have been telling yourself for years, that you are not strong enough, that you will fail again, that nothing has changed." The elephant felt something shift inside him. No one had ever spoken to him like that before. "You are not tied by the rope. You are tied by your memory of the rope." The wind moved gently through the trees. The forest seemed to grow quieter, as if it were listening. "For years," the monkey said softly, "you have been living as the same small elephant, even though you are no longer that creature." The elephant looked down at the ground. For the first time, doubt appeared in his mind. Not doubt about himself, doubt about his limitation. "What if," the monkey continued, "the only thing standing between you and freedom is the belief that you are not free?" The elephant's heart began to faster. He had never questioned that belief, not once. The monkey stepped back. "I cannot break the rope for you, and I cannot give you strength you already have." He paused, then looked directly into the elephant's eyes. "But I can tell you the truth. The moment you question the story, the rope loses its power." The monkey turned and slowly walked away, disappearing into the trees. The elephant remained still, but something had changed. For the first time in years, he looked at the rope and wondered if it had ever truly been strong. The elephant remained beside the tree long after the monkey had disappeared into the forest. The air felt different. Nothing had changed, and yet something had. The rope was still there. The stake was still in the ground. The forest moved as it always had. But inside him, a quiet question had begun to grow. What if the monkey was right? He lowered his gaze and looked at the rope again. For years, he had never really looked at it, not carefully, not honestly. He had only remembered it, the memory of resistance, the memory of failure, the memory of exhaustion. But now he was seeing it. The fibers were worn. The knot was loose. The stake leaned slightly to one side. A small breeze moved through the trees, and the rope shifted gently against his leg. It did not feel strong. It felt fragile. The elephant's breathing became slower. He did not move yet. Instead, he closed his eyes, and for the first time in many years, he allowed himself to feel what he had been avoiding: the past, the moment he had given up. He saw himself as a young calf again, pulling, struggling, falling, trying again, failing again. He felt the frustration, the helplessness, the quiet moment when he stopped trying. Not because the rope was stronger, but because his belief had become weaker. A deep breath entered his chest, and slowly something began to shift. The memory was still there, but it no longer felt like a command. It felt like a moment that had already passed. The elephant opened his eyes. The forest stood quietly around him. The rope rested against his leg, and now, for the first time, there was space between what had happened and what was possible. He took a small breath, then another. He did not try to break free, not yet. Instead, he did something simpler. He moved his foot, just slightly. The rope tightened for a moment, then relaxed. The stake trembled. The elephant froze. His heart began to race. The old fear returned instantly. A voice inside him whispered, "You see? You cannot break it." But another voice, quieter, steadier, answered, "Try again." He shifted his weight once more, this time a little further. The rope stretched. The stake moved again, just a little. The elephant stepped back, not because he was forced to, but because he was thinking. For years, he had believed the rope was unbreakable. Now, for the first time, it had moved. He stood still, feeling the ground beneath his feet, listening to his breath. The forest did not rush him. The wind passed through the trees as if nothing important was happening. But inside him, everything was changing. He looked down once more. The rope, the stake, the same things that had held him for years, or at least that he believed had held him. A long silence passed. Then slowly, very slowly, the elephant leaned his body forward, not with force, not with anger, but with awareness. The rope tightened. The stake resisted. For a brief moment, the old fear returned. The memory of failure tried to take control, but this time he did not stop. He breathed in and continued. A small crack echoed through the quiet forest. The stake shifted deeper into the soil. The elephant paused again. His heart was pounding now, not from effort, from realization. He had never been this close before, not because the rope had changed, but because he had. The next movement came without hesitation. He stepped forward with calm strength. The rope tightened pull. The stake resisted one last time, and then it broke. The sound was not loud, but to the elephant it felt like thunder. The tension disappeared instantly. The rope fell loosely to the ground. The elephant stood still, free, completely free. He did not run. He did not celebrate. He simply stood there, breathing, feeling the absence of something that had defined his life for so long. The forest seemed wider. The air felt lighter. The silence felt deeper. Slowly,
He took another step, then another. No resistance, no force, only movement. For the first time in his life, he was not being held back. And yet, as he walked forward, a strange realization came to him. The rope was not his prison. The belief was. He stopped for a moment and looked back at the broken stake lying on the ground. So small, so insignificant, and yet it had held him for years. Not through strength, but through memory, through doubt, through a story he had never questioned. The elephant turned his gaze forward again. The forest stretched endlessly before him, paths he had never explored, places he had never seen, life he had never lived. And with a calm breath,
the elephant walked for a long time without a destination, not because he was lost, but because, for the first time, there was no direction imposed on him. Every step felt unfamiliar, not difficult, just new. The forest that once felt like a boundary now felt open, almost endless. He moved slowly, noticing things he had never truly seen before. The way sunlight filtered through the leaves, the quiet rhythm of insects moving in the grass, the distant sound of water flowing over stone. For years, his world had been limited to a single tree. Now the world was revealing itself, piece by piece. But freedom is not always easy. As he walked, something unexpected began to surface. Not outside, inside, a thought. What if I am not ready for this? The elephant stopped. The forest did not answer. The wind passed through the trees as it always had. The question remained. For so long, his life had been defined by a single certainty. He could not break the rope. Now that certainty was gone, and in its place, there was space. Space can feel like freedom, but it can also feel like uncertainty. He took a slow breath. The memory of the rope still lived inside him, even though it was no longer there. That was the strange part. The body had been freed in a moment, but the mind needed time. He continued walking until he reached a small clearing. At the center stood a quiet pond. The surface of the water was perfectly still. The elephant approached and looked at his reflection. He saw the same body, the same strength, but something in his eyes had changed. He was no longer looking down. He was looking forward. As he stood there, a group of smaller animals gathered nearby, a young deer, 2 rabbits, a bird resting on a low branch. They had been watching him from a distance, not with fear, with curiosity. The deer stepped forward carefully. "Is it true?" she asked softly. "Did you break the rope?" The elephant looked at her. "Yes," he said. The rabbits moved closer. "How?" one of them asked. The elephant paused. For a moment, he thought about answering in the simplest way. "I pulled. I used my strength." But that was not the truth. "I didn't break the rope," he said slowly. "I broke the belief." The animals looked at him in silence. The bird tilted its head. "What does that mean?" it asked. The elephant looked at the pond again. "It means the rope was never as strong as I thought." He turned back toward them. "I believed it was impossible to leave, so I never truly tried again." The deer lowered her gaze. "I feel like that sometimes, like I am afraid to go beyond what I already know." The elephant nodded. "That fear feels real," he said, "but it often comes from something old, something that is no longer true." The rabbits listened closely now. "What should we do then?" one of them asked. The elephant remained quiet for a moment. He was not trying to teach, he was remembering. "First," he said, "you have to notice the story you are telling yourself. The one that says you can't, the one that says you will fail, the one that keeps you standing still. The forest remained silent around them. Then, he continued, you don't fight it. You don't try to destroy it. You just question it, gently. The bird shifted slightly on the branch. And then, it asked. The elephant took a slow breath. And then, he said, you take a small step. Not a big one, just enough to see what is real. The deer looked at the ground. The rabbits remained still. The words were simple, but they carried weight. The elephant turned once more toward the forest beyond the clearing. I didn't become free in one moment. I became free the moment I stopped believing I wasn't. A soft breeze moved across the pond, breaking the reflection into small ripples. The animals watched him as he began to walk again. Not quickly, not with urgency, but with a quiet certainty, the kind that does not need to prove anything. As he disappeared between the trees, the clearing felt different, not because the elephant had changed the forest, but because something in those who had watched him had shifted. The deer remained still for a long moment. Then slowly she took a step forward, just one. The rabbits looked at each other, then followed. The bird lifted its wings and flew a little further than before. The forest returned to its quiet rhythm, but something invisible had moved through it. Not force, not fear, understanding. And somewhere beyond the trees, the elephant continued his path. Not searching, not escaping, just walking, free in a way that could not be taken away again.